I want to introduce our section chair for this year, Dr. Eric Potts. I got a lot of these photos from his wife, Mary Claire. His family is sitting here in the front row. His kids, Alex, Caroline, Teddy, and Juliet. So it's wonderful to have them all here. Eric was born in Pittsburgh. He's an only child. He liked to swim, and when he was in high school, he swam even more. He also is very musically oriented. He likes to get in behind machinery, and so now as a spine surgeon, he's pretty happy doing that kind of stuff. Eric was quite the sportsman. He loves to ski and was a diver in high school, and he holds the school record for diving in Carmel. And Mary Claire tells me that he actually goes and checks the scoreboard to make sure that his name is still up there every year, that no one's beaten his record. He did then go to the University of Pennsylvania, where he did a BA in biology and was also a diver there. Subsequently went to medical school at IU, class of 1995, and then undertook a residency in neurosurgery and as well as fellowships. He's quite good with his hands, as you can see here. His residency was at the University of Maryland, and his spine fellowship with the Indianapolis Neurosurgical Group, and he still works with the Indianapolis Neurosurgical Group even today. And Eric is a superb teacher, has trained many residents and fellows over his time. He is married to Mary Claire, and they have a wonderful family, and he's been just a spectacular leader for the spine section this year. And he, other things that he likes to do with his family includes the Super Bowl and the Indianapolis 500. He's also a fan of the Colts and Notre Dame football, since all his kids seem to go to Notre Dame. With that, I'd like to introduce you to this year's section chair and a superb and wonderful leader and a personal friend, Eric Potts.
All right, good morning again. Welcome again to the Spine Summit. This is a meeting that has set records. We had over 1,000 abstracts submitted. Thank you to everybody who submitted. The science is great because of you. We also have the largest number of exhibitors in the exhibit hall, so please, they're here to see you. Go see them. The theme, those are my disclosures. The theme of the meeting is navigating the future. The theme of this session is navigating the future, and the theme of my talk is, you guessed it, navigating the future. We have generations of surgeons in the audience with us, and we all share this common journey of navigating the future. So we do it at different times, but say from the operative microscope to pedicle screws to navigation systems and robots to ChatGPT and AI, we all have the challenge of trying to incorporate new technology and new techniques into the care of our patients. So navigation, surgical navigation has always been a passion of mine. Let me tell you about my journey. When I was a resident, we got a stealth station. We quickly used it for all the cranial cases. The times that we tried to do spine with it, it was painful. It just didn't work. And I quickly learned that stealth stood for stand around, touch everything, and lose 2 hours. I finished residency. I started a fellowship at the Indianapolis Neurosurgical Group. And one of the clinical sites there is the St. Vincent Hospital, which is this 1970s nightmare of a building. But it turns out that place had the second fluoronav unit in the country, and they used it every day without fail. It wasn't great, but you got 2 views instead of 1. The C-arm was out of the way, and you didn't have to wear lead. 2 years later, we got the Siemens ISO-C, which is an isocentric C-arm, rotates 190 degrees and gives you real-time cross-sectional imaging in the operating room. I think that was the game changer. It was a small field of view, but good. In 2006, when Medtronic launched the O-arm, we had the first O-arm in the country, St. Vincent Hospital. We used it and loved it. Around that time, I started teaching courses. I'd always ask, hey, is there a navigation station in the cadaver lab? Slowly, reluctantly, the answer became yes. When we'd go teach, nobody really wanted to see it or do it and didn't really understand it. And it always struck me as odd. How is something that was so transformational for me, so important to my practice, be dismissed by nearly everybody else? Why isn't it being adopted? This is Robert Sapolsky. He's an evolutionary biologist at Stanford. In my mind, this is what I think an evolutionary biologist should look like. And I heard a story about him a number of years ago, which I think will be helpful about adoption. He had a new assistant in his lab, a young guy, 21-year-old guy, who was great. He was fantastic, answered the phone well, did his job. And one day, Sapolsky figures out the guy's just annoying. He's irritating. And it wasn't the guy, it's the fact there's the music he listened to. So it all started with Sonic Youth. But then it went to Mini Pro. You see, the kid just didn't listen to new songs or a new album. He listened to completely new genres every day. So then came Beethoven. And then klezmer music. By the time he got to Puccini arias, Sapolsky had to figure out why this guy was driving him crazy. During that time, Sapolsky's wearing out Bob Marley's greatest hits. Now, this would date him, but he was the guy who would buy late-night CD anthologies from TV to listen to the music that he liked. Now he would just have a really boring Spotify feed or maybe listen to the 70s channel on XN. So he decides he wants to sort of take this journey, get out of the rut, find out why this kid's so annoying. Is there a point where we change as people and we go from adventure to more staid and conservative and kind of a routine kind of thing? So he looked at 3 different things. And what he looked at was music, sushi, and body piercing. Sapolsky calls 50 FM radio stations across the country and asks them the 2 following questions. What's the average age of your listener, and what's the average age of the music that you played? It turns out there's a standard formula in the business, breakthrough minus 20. So if you have a hit as an artist in 2000, the average date of birth of your listeners is 1980. We're really open to new music from our teen years to our early 20 years, but after that, it wanes. Sapolsky found out that by the time we get to 35, we're really not open to new music. It's a 95% chance we're not going to listen to new music. So it turns out that really the soundtrack of our lives is actually the soundtrack of our youths for most of us. Next came sushi eating. And when he did this, he called sushi restaurants in the Midwest, and sushi was not as ubiquitous as it is now. I mean, you can get sushi at my kid's high school or at the local VA hospital in Indianapolis. But he found a similar trend. First-time sushi eaters were mostly 26 and younger. From 27 to 39, you're going to try it. After 39, a 95% chance you're not going to eat sushi. Body piercing, tongue piercing in particular. It turns out this is a young person's sport. 16 to 23. After 23, 95% chance you're not going to get your tongue pierced. So I'm good, right? So do we become less adventurous as we age? A psychologist at UC Davis looked at this. His name is Dean Simonton, and found out, yeah, in general, we get less adventurous. We're open to less new things. But there is a small swath of people who will retain that sense of adventure. Of the people who do not, the people who become staid and stiff and conservative, have 2 things in common. They're in the same job for a long time, and they're good at the job. So in short, they've succeeded. So I think we, my friends, may have a problem because most of us fit that criteria. Same job for a long time and good at it. Mike Wang, a number of years ago on this stage, presented an awake endoscopic T-lift. And he said, I wanted to learn a new technique, something new before I was too old to do that. He's still talking about it here at this meeting. So while I've not surveyed all of you in the room, I believe that the same thing we saw with eating sushi or music or tongue piercing exists in this room. As we age, we're less likely to try new things. I think that the good news is we train when we're older, the length of our training is longer, and we learn lots of new things as we're training. So it may be that our window of opportunity is open longer. The other good thing is that a lot of our techniques are not revolutionary, they're iterative. So you put in a posterior interbody spacer the same way, whether it's made of PEEK or titanium-coated PEEK or 3D printed titanium. Albert Einstein was quoted as saying, if you've not made a significant contribution to science by the age of 30, it's likely you'll never do so. It turns out this is probably Max Planck who said this, but it still sort of belies the bias we have for youth and sort of the perception that we're more creative when we're younger. I think this misses the point with spine surgery because you really can't even do this job independently until you're in your 30s. And when you're done with your training, are you at your peak skill level? Are you the best you can be? You may in fact be the smartest person in the hospital. You may have a great amount of knowledge, but are you fantastic? A colleague of mine, co-resident, earned the name Monkey Boy in residency. And the explanation that always followed was you could teach a monkey to operate, but you can't teach a monkey to not operate. He was a smart guy. He was a great surgeon. What was he missing? What didn't he have? I think the answer is wisdom. So wisdom is a word that's hard to define. If you put surgical wisdom in PubMed, the first 5 citations that come up and 90% of the first 100 deal with wisdom teeth extraction. It's crazy. We don't write about it. Psychologists struggle to define this as well. Staudinger and Baltz will say that it's insight and knowledge about oneself and the world, and sound judgment in the case of difficult life problems. Other people think it's a quality of just an innate quality of a person. Despite the difficulty in defining wisdom, we all know it when we see it. It's one of those words. So if I ask you in the audience to name a wise colleague, you're going to come up with a mentor or teacher pretty easily. We know it really well. As we begin our careers, we begin to gain wisdom. It's difficult to gain wisdom from a book. Wisdom's distinct from knowledge. Wisdom, it comes from experience, miles walked. Peggy Plews-Ogan, who's an internist at UVA and also a wisdom researcher, says that adversity is a particularly powerful teacher of wisdom. So every failure that we have adds to our wisdom. Every time you turn in an M&M case and think about it, you become wiser. But wisdom also encompasses more than just a cognitive aspect. It encompasses the ability to reflect and think from a different perspective. It requires the ability to have sympathy and compassion. It requires the acceptance of a certain degree of uncertainty in decision-making. So hopefully, as we gain wisdom, it allows us to incorporate more things into our careers, new techniques and new devices. So we'll talk about medical device, spine surgery in the spine section. When you think about progress, it's often alluring to think, let's look at the past to inform us about progress. And I think that's hazardous. We have kind of selective memory, recall bias, and we often come up with a version of progress that's not really the true version. Okay, so think about a posterior cervical construct, standard polyaxial screw and rod construct, and you think, gosh, we've done this forever. It makes sense. This seems like a great system. It's only been around for 20 years. Before that, we had lateral mass plates. Ooh. And we had Halifax clamps. Before that, we had wiring and a whole lot of halos. So progress is messy, right? It's not what this is on the left, it's what it is on the right. We have failures along the way, and as we just heard, failures really drive progress. The demographics of individual physicians are changing, and they're changing rapidly. So historically, if we look, 80% of people were in independent practice. AMA Physician Practice Survey 2022, there's a 9-point decrease in independent physicians to 44%. Along the same time, an increase to almost 50% of the employed physicians. This is the first time we've seen employed physicians outnumber independent physicians. And why is this? I think 2 easy reasons. Decreasing reimbursements and increasing overhead. The staffing and administrative costs and regulatory burdens are outpacing our reimbursements. So how are hospitals doing? Okay, here's from the AMA 2001 to 2023. Hospitals are up about 70%. Outpatient facilities up about 70%. Physicians up about 10%. But if you adjust that for inflation, we're really down 26%. So given these numbers, physicians often have no choice but to become employed. And I know what you're thinking is, I didn't go to business school. I don't want to be a businessman. I'm happy to be employed. Somebody else takes care of the business side. But this is a short-sighted viewpoint, okay? I'm going to give you 2 reasons for this. I'll give you 2 reasons, but it's short-sighted not only for physicians, but for the healthcare system. The first example is when you're employed by a healthcare system, you're expected to refer all your tests and procedures to that system. So in Indianapolis today, lumbar MRI scan done at a freestanding center costs about $800. If you send it to a hospital, that's $2,000 or $3,000 for the same test. So the hazard of shunting all our procedures and tests to the highest cost provider is the ever-ballooning cost of delivering the exact same care. The next example deals with the hospitals. They don't care about your DRGs, or they don't care about your reimbursement, right? They are focused on one thing, and that is their reimbursement. So they're not going to lobby to have your CPT codes increased. And then as that happens, they're going to tell you, well, we can't pay we can't increase your pay. In fact, we're going to decrease your pay. So they're going to hide behind a fair market value analysis and say, we need to decrease the pay. And it turns out that's a good business decision for them and an easy choice because it saves them money. Working for a hospital system is not without risk. This is from the DOJ, December 2023. Indiana healthcare system agreed to pay $345 million to settle False Claims Act allegations. Specifically in this settlement dealt with physician payment and a specific segment for neurosurgery physician payment. So how do we combat this? I think every physician needs to have ownership or access to a facility and facility fees. There are common cases we can do is we switch to more outpatient surgery. So today you could do an ACDF or TDR or a lumbar laminectomy or lumbar discectomy, very easy. This is our surgery center, North Meridian Surgery Center. High physician satisfaction, staff satisfaction, and patient satisfaction. It's a great place to work. About 10 years ago in Indianapolis, we decided to explore building a physician-owned spine hospital. Now, as most of you probably know, the Affordable Care Act prohibits physicians from owning a hospital that does business with the government. So if you do CMS cases. As an aside, who can own a hospital? Well, it turns out almost everybody else can own a hospital in the country except for us. And even the private equity people can own a hospital. How do you think it goes when they own the hospital? JAMA last year, not great. Increased complications and worse outcomes. So prior to opening the hospital, we did one thing. We got a contract with Anthem, which is the largest commercial payer, so we knew we'd be in network. We opened up the hospital, and how many of you have ever had a CPT code denied by the insurance company, right? Everybody, right? So we like to use BNP in Indianapolis, and that usually gets denied. So we decided to do an experiment with the hospital and do the surgery with BNP as we wanted to see what happened with the payment as it went through the system. It turned out that the hospital was paid as it should be by contract. So the hospital had to write off the cost of the BNP in a way, but we can look at it from a business standpoint. If it's a good business decision, then we can still do that. So now in Indianapolis at ISH, what I appreciate is I can make a decision what's good for my patient and not have to be limited by what the insurance company says in these circumstances. It's really a fantastic way to do it. As it turns out, Indiana Spine Hospital is the cheapest place in Indianapolis to have spine surgery. Our costs or charges are 50 to 80% of what the competitors are. Reimbursement in medicine is complex. We do a poor job educating our trainees about reimbursement. If they leave residency or fellowship and believe their payment comes only from our professional codes, we've done them a tremendous disservice. We need to improve how we educate people about the economics of healthcare. How's the future for medical device? I think we're at an interesting point with technology. Here we see clear evidence that the progress is not linear. The devices on the screen here haven't done well, and I don't know what things will come down the pike, but I think you have to play that one forward. AI seems ripe to change workflow. If you look at Viz AI, they have software that detects stroke very readily. If you look at any of the deformity planning programs, they're better at measuring spinopelvic parameters than the surgeons are. There are large language models that synthesize data. Large action models may drive action. Imagine if AI could do your prior authorizations for you. I think AI will begin or continue to play important roles in imaging, navigation, robotics. How about ChatGPT? Full disclosure, I did not use ChatGPT, but I think we're all going to have to deal with the fact that our patients are going to come in the office one day and say, well, here's what ChatGPT said is the best treatment for my problem. That's going to be very difficult. Virtual scribes are around. They'll listen to your conversation with you and your patient, and they will generate a note. This exists today. AR and VR, they're headsets we can all wear to do navigation. Those companies and all the device companies have to deal with the onerous FDA rules. So we're used to technological advancement at a consumer pace, right? A new iPhone every year. It doesn't exist in the FDA. You can't do it. So when you have a device in the operating room, it seems slow and a little kludgy. It is. It's built on old technology. We need a better way to get new technology in the operating room efficiently. How about spinal surgery? The rates of spinal surgery have increased over the last 20 years. By some estimates, by the year 2060, they'll increase another 80%, and that'll be even more acute in the older patients. So people who are aging well, and I think if you think about your tolerance of operating on an 80-year-old now and compare it to 10 or 15 years ago, I imagine that you're more willing to do that procedure now. I think the unknown question is, what are the payers going to do, and will they tolerate that increasing amount of surgery? As spine surgeons, we're under threat from non-spine surgeons doing spinal surgery. The spinous process spacers that have fallen out of favor with us are being peddled to the pain doctors. I had a patient in the office the other day tell me that her pain doctor in Greenfield, Indiana, invented the spacer and it was going to help her, right? She was shocked when I said, he did not invent the spacer and probably not help you. So we need to protect our business and ensure that the surgeons are at the center of the equation and are identified as the spinal experts. I think this underscores the need for high-quality data. I'd like to highlight the work of SpineCore, which is an offshoot of the Quality Outcomes Database and NeuroPoint Alliance. This is a group of academic centers and private practice centers who are dedicated to long-term follow-up of common procedures that we all do. So we've looked at degenerative spondylolisthesis, we've looked at cervical myelopathy, and also high-grade spondylolisthesis. This long-term, high-quality data is absolutely necessary to validate the procedures that you and I do on a daily basis. The spine section is committed to being the premier spine surgical meeting. Our increasing abstracts and the great science that you all have provided are a way that we can give back to you and advance the field together. I'd like to highlight the partnerships we have with WFNS, CSRS, and SRS. We have courses with them. The SRS at IMAS, the joint section, will have a co-branded course with them as well in April. The spine section's committed to funding research. Through NREF, we'll have a $40,000 award for a spine-specific topic. And then in conjunction with our successful mentorship program, we'll have an award via the spine section to help early career surgeons get to the point they can have federal funding. Through our Payer Response Committee, we're dedicated to advocacy led by Yi Lu. We deal with interoperative monitoring, trying to get peak spacers paid for in an ACDF by Aetna. And we have a seat at the Washington Committee, so we have a pulse on what's coming down the pike. I'd like to thank a number of people. I'd like to thank the chairs of this great organization. Without their vision and leadership, this meeting would not be what it is and not be possible. So thank you very much. I'm indebted to them. My partners at Goodman Campbell Brain and Spine, I don't think you'll find a finer group of people. I'm honored to work with them. This is the first ever picture of the executive committee of the spine section. So we took this yesterday, and here we are. Thank you to Charlie Sanser, our annual meeting chair, Zach Bray, our scientific program chair, Mike Kelly, our orthopedic scientific program chair. They put together a great meeting. The AANS meeting services, Anne-Marie Bray, Kimberly Scher, Christy Halpin, and Michelle Taylor. They've done a great job. Thank you. The section is in a great spot with leadership. Wanya Ribe is our chair-elect. Erica Bisson and Lou Tumialan, two long-serving leaders. I know we'll see great things from them in the future. I'd like to thank John O'Toole for his work with industry and the exhibits committee, and John Shin is a tireless social media promoter of this meeting. He's done a fantastic job. Finally, I'd like to thank my family, my wife, Mary Claire, my children, Alex, Caroline, Teddy, and Juliet, who are all here, with the exception of Caroline, who's stuck at Notre Dame studying for the MCAT. Good luck. I love you guys very much. Thank you for everything. I can't do it without you. Sorry. Finally, allow me to circle back to wisdom. AI is a hot topic right now, and there's always a bit of concern or bit of trepidation when we talk about that. Will AI change workflow? Almost certainly. Think about the computing power in your phone. It's amazing, right? It empowers knowledge, and that'll continue to do so. The one thing it will struggle to do is to impart wisdom. AI will not know your individual experience in your last deformity case. It will not know when your patient is only telling you part of the story. It will not know your patient's fear or trepidation of surgery because their mother died in the operating room. The wisdom that we have is an integral part of the equation. For the time being, there is no artificial wisdom. So gather your wisdom, embrace your wisdom, and share your wisdom widely. Thank you very much.